What's this?
Me before my me Omar lo mata'asa. Tajika ta'adonai lahamidu l'chachayot asher v'yadech ha'piton torufot. Achad sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh. Ki b'beit Adonai kol yemei chayai. L'chazot b'nam Adonai u'l'vakir b'tefaro. Shema Adonai koli ekra. V'choneni ve'aneni. L'ta'amar li b'akshu panai. Et panecha Adonai avakesh. Al taser panecha mimeni. Al ta'af avdecha. Azrati. Hayita al tassheni. Ve'al ta'aseni. Eloi Ishi.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can remind everyone to please turn off your cell phones for the service. I'll also invite you to come much closer if you'd like to be able to hear the rabbi a bit better.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rabbi Emily Hyatt, and it is my sad honor to be with you on this day to say goodbye to Adrienne Nelson. And we know that funerals are never easy. We know that this kind of goodbye is never, it's never simple. And yet we also know that we, in the Jewish tradition, have a little bit of a plan that helps us to move through what happens at a funeral and hopes to make this process, this hard work, just a little bit easier. I think that sometimes when the sun is shining so bright and it's a beautiful day, and it does on a day like today, when it's a little cloudy and dreary, it allows us to sit in our grief a little bit differently. And so we do just that. There's 3 pieces to this service today. The first thing that we do is prepare ourselves to say goodbye. Walking into this space does a lot of that, but then we also share some poetry and liturgy that helps us to get ready. The second thing that we do once we feel a little bit prepared is that we tell the story of Adrienne. It turns out you actually can't look at the full picture of a person's life until they are gone. And so now we get to take a step back and look at her life, to look at what she meant to all of you and see that in its entirety. And then the third thing that we do is say goodbye to her physical presence. It's not an easy thing to do. In fact, it's pretty hard. And it's okay if it feels hard, especially if this might be somebody's first funeral. It's a little bit strange, the way that we say goodbye. And yet we know that we are doing really, really important work by being here, by saying goodbye, by accompanying Adrienne in these final moments. It's really important. And so with that, we prepare ourselves to do that work. There is a poem that on this first-ish day of fall feels important in this space today, and it's called We Remember Them. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the sun, we remember them. I got you. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the sun, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we're lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. And though I know that Adrienne wasn't a particularly traditional person, I want to share with you the words of Psalm 23. These are words that almost every faith includes in their funeral service, and it has a really famous line. It says, "When I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me." And we might interpret that to mean that the person who has died is walking through that valley, and so we are saying goodbye and hoping that they are not afraid in that journey that they are on. But there's another interpretation, that actually it's us. We're the ones that are in the valley. And it's hard to lose someone. And so we are experiencing that darkness, that valley right now. And when we say, "I fear no evil, for you are with me," sure, that could be talking about God, and our tradition probably intends it that way. But also it could be talking about the memory of a person that we have lost, because we know that when somebody dies, we might not feel their physical presence, but we do feel them with us, their memory and their legacy. And so we walk through this valley and feel sad, and yet we know that we don't have to be afraid, because that person that we have lost is with us. Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, bino teshayar b'tzeini, al mei menuchot yana haleini nafshi yeshoveh, yanacheni b'magalet tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech b'gates al mavet lo irara, ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umishantecha, hema yenachamuni, ta'aroch lefanai, shochan neged zorai. Dishanta b'shem en roshi, kosi revaya. Achtov v'chesed yirtifuni, kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. And even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. And I share with you one more poem. What I learned about Adrienne is just how kind she was, how kind-hearted and how giving, and how much love she had inside her. And so this poem is called When I Die. When I die, if you need to weep, cry for someone walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around others and give them what you need to give me. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands and souls touch souls. You can love me most by sharing your joys and multiplying your good deeds, by letting me live in your eyes and not in your mind. And when you need to mourn for me, remember what our tradition teaches. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. And so with that, we prepare to tell the story of Adrienne's life. And there are a couple of people who are going to come and help us tell that story. One of the ways to think about this tradition that we have, it's actually an obligation in our tradition to tell the story. And if you look at these beautiful headstones that are around us, what you'll notice is that on all of them, under people's names, there are two dates: the date that they were born and the date that they died. And in the middle is this little dash, and the whole entirety of their story and their identity and who they are is contained in the space between those two dates. And while the symbol may be small, we know that actually the story is not. And the love that they had for people and that people have for them is not. And so we get to hear about that, to speak it out loud so that we have those memories to take with us. And so I don't know who wants to start. We didn't pick an order of our speakers, but I'm going to say the names as I remember them. So does Kitty want to start?
Perfect day for this. Adrienne's heart gave out. That's what did her in. She had a big heart, a really big heart. But she was also a woman of many contradictions. She was irascible, sometimes difficult to deal with, but incredibly attuned to the welfare of her family and her friends. She was very intelligent and competent, and her many years as a paralegal was of great value to the decisions made by our HOA board. That's where I come from. I'm a neighbor and a member of the former member of the HOA board. She would find things in documents and contracts that no one else had seen. She was amazing in that way. Adrienne led a challenging life and a very independent life. She had many jobs, many adventures, and many sorrows. Like most of us, all she wanted was love, to give it and to receive it. Well, she sure worked her way into my heart. Adrienne, your struggles are over. No more stopped up sinks, temperamental computers, and no more difficult conversations. Finally, my dear friend, you are at peace. I'll miss you.
Marley, and I am a friend of the Big A. I forgot why she started calling herself the Big A, because she wasn't big. She even had California license plates that said Big A, letter A, and then the letter N, LA, Big A in LA. And I can't imagine the number of cars that sat on that freeway wondering what Biggin in LA meant. Biggin. It just didn't make sense. But since she always called herself the Big A, I'd call her and say, hi, Big A, little M, and I'm 5'9", just to make fun of that. And recently I saw Colorado license plates, and the first letters were big, and then you know how they have the letters now in front of sometimes the numbers? It was Big A, and then there was 2 letters. So I snapped a picture of it, and I sent it to her. I said, look at it, real Big A license plates now. So anyway, Adrienne and I go back to the early 80s. I think we met through a mutual friend, and I ended up renting the lower level of her house in the Southmore Park area. And that's when I got to know her. And even though I think it was only a couple months I lived there, we got to be friends from early 83 or so. And I was the first roommate that never ripped her off of anything. People were stealing her clothes and everything, and I never stole a single thing. I think that's why we remained friends. And I remember her during that time. She was taking care of 2 of the oldest huskies I'd ever seen, and they shedded like crazy. She drank Baileys all hours of the day, and she played backgammon to all hours of the night. But during that time, I noticed I never saw her eat a salad, a vegetable, or anything healthy. Fast forward a few years, she moved to Los Angeles. And a few years later in 88, I moved out there. And instead of writing business things in my daytimers, I kept a personal journal. And she's in my journal a lot. And I'm going to miss not being able to read those things to her. So it turned out that I had many notes in my journal. And like when Adrienne and I went sailing, or we tried to get into a sold out movie in Century City. We just had a lot of good times in Los Angeles. So these are memories. And it was amazing. One time I found out I wrote down what year she moved back to Colorado. And she was so impressed that I'd written that down about her, because she couldn't remember what year she moved back. So she helped me find good areas of LA to live in. And so we'd go out and go out to the places that she'd heard at work, like the Red Onion was fun, the Improv. We'd go to all these places that she had heard at work. And I had quit smoking, and I tried at one time to get her to quit smoking. And do you guys know that she hadn't had a cigarette in over 3 years? Her anniversary date is March 7th, and it would have been 4 years this March. So I was so proud of her that she finally quit. And I remember her trying to quit so many times, and she'd tell me and confess, well, I had a cheat puff. Well, cheat puffs don't work, Adrienne. And she laughed because I guess I ended up staying with her in LA while I was waiting for an apartment to open. And she was amazed that I asked her, who owned the condo, to step outside and have a cigarette. I just couldn't take that cigarette smoke in there anymore. So she chuckled about that. She had a good sense of humor. So for being so different, we had a lot in common. We found out that my older sister and her went to junior high and high school together. We both graduated from George Washington in '65. And we lived within blocks of each other in the 60s, but we never knew that until now. My father and her also in her house that she loved in Southmore Park area. They lived within blocks of each other. So our paths kept crossing very, very close. We had the same taste. I loved her taste in art, jewelry, everything. And she showed me the Subaru that she bought 6 years ago. And 2 weeks later, I bought the same color with the same interior. She remodeled her bathroom recently, and she just loved that remodel. I mean, she was so proud of it. She worked so hard on it. And she was then I decided, well, I'm gonna remodel my bathroom. And so she was helping me, and she was instructing me on what to do. She came over, she says, well, I just like to put things together. She helped me put this bathroom together and says, Marlene, you need the vanity first. And so anyway, I was doing it all wrong, and I'm gonna miss her helping me more. We were both involved in HOAs. I worked for a property management company, so we'd have long discussions, and I just love to hear her thinking about being on the board and all that. We just talked for hours. I just loved talking to her about the industry and everything. She helped us with our estate sales. She was great. We had like 75 necklaces or something. She came over and she had all those necklaces arranged and perfectly in order in like 3 hours. It would have taken me the whole entire weekend to do what she did and could organize in 3 hours. And what I'm going to miss about the Big A, our phone calls. They were always over an hour. We just talked so easily together. And my mom and I look at the chair she sat on in our living room, and she said, and we both said, that's going to be Adrienne's chair. She always sat in that chair. We can't think of that chair without thinking of Adrienne now. And I called her many times as I was passing Dartmouth on Havana on my way to Costco, because that's the street I turned down when I went to visit her. So that Dartmouth street is always going to always made me call her. Sometimes I just leave a message, hi, I am passing by that street. It's going to be hard to not think of her. And then her telling me I'm going to miss, I have the worst sense of direction she's ever seen in anyone. She just couldn't believe how I could get so lost. And she just was amazed by that. And then I've been calling her and congratulating her on her smoking anniversary. I'm going to miss that. And then most of all, how organized and clean she was. I'd go over to her house and there was never a dirty dish. There was never anything out of order. I was so impressed. I'd have her come over and help me organize my room. And just her coming over helped me get a few boxes in order and all that, because I knew we'd end up talking most of the time she was supposed to be organizing. We'd just sit down and talk. And we never forgot each other's birthdays. July 17th, and I'm in August. So we always remembered each other's birthdays. And again, as Kitty mentioned how intelligent she was, I just really admired how intelligent Adrienne was. She just was smart. She just was a smart person. And last couple times I've been over there, I said, Adrienne, you need to have fun. You need to have some fun. I mean, she took care of her father early in the summer. And I just thought, she'd been so organized, all of the affairs. And I said, Adrienne, you just need to have some fun. And I was ready to go out and do some things that we used to do, sailing in LA and go to places. I was ready to do that with her. And now I'm really sad I'm not going to be able to do that with her.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I worked with Adrienne. That's where I met her and made friends with her. And I forgot my notes, but I just wanted to say she was the best friend. She was so caring and attentive and dependable. She'd never miss your birthday. She would just make a point of calling you, see how you are. And I'm going to really miss her. She was kind, and she had a rough early childhood. I'd say her mother, was kind of distracted and left when Adrienne was fairly young. And ironically, what meant, I think, the most to Adrienne in her life was, as was written in the obituary, family. She cared about family more than anything. And it just hurt her badly. She didn't have her own nuclear family, I guess, but her Uncle David and his family really welcomed her and made her feel part of their family and did a lot of really kind things for her. They traveled and invited her to come along, and she had some real nice little trips in more recent years. She very much loved children and animals, and they loved her too. Her uncle had a beautiful dog. She loved T-Bear. She loved T-Bear so much. She loved her little nieces and nephews, I guess, or great nieces and nephews. When I worked with her downtown, she was either rushing off after working all day to go to work at her second job at Lord & Taylor so she could pay off her townhouse, which was a goal which she accomplished, or she was going over to her stepsister's house to play with his two children, Hannah and Saul, and she loved them so much. And she'd come back the next day going on and on about how cute they were, and I just really got sick of it. But they really were cute. But she wouldn't just go visit them and have dinner. She would play with them. She'd crawl around on the floor. I don't know what all, but I don't know how she had the energy. She had a great deal of energy for a woman her age, but the board meetings, and she showed up. She was prepared more than anyone there. She'd spend hours. No stone was left unturned. It was done right way, the Adrienne way, and always. And she treated her friends the same way. You were going to be treated as a friend should be treated. She never skipped. And that was special about her. So back to, and the children, now her latest focus was on Cody, which is her newest addition to the family. And she never tired of telling what a darling, smart, bright, amazing child Cody was, and I think he is. But she really understood. But yeah, she just was delighted with Cody's addition. And I was going to mention at my son's funeral, he's here today, or not funeral, wedding. Sorry. Sorry, Colin. The little flower girl walking down the aisle, it was an outdoor service. The little flower girl stopped right by Adrienne and just was mesmerized by her for a minute or two. I thought, is this the end of that? But then she finally moved on. But I mean, she just stared at Adrienne, and I thought, this is so Adrienne. Animals and children loved her. They knew they're in my mind the truest, authentic judges of character. And there you go. That was Adrienne. She just had that connection. Can't remember maybe everything I'd written down. I wanted to mention a few of her funny things, like so I was interested to hear Marlene said she had a terrible sense of direction, because I thought you were going to say Adrienne did. I learned that if you were ever giving directions to Adrienne, don't ever use these words, north, south, east, or west, because she would give you the blankest stare. So she was directionally challenged. And then she had a couple of funny little expressions. I thought if she was really annoyed with someone, she might tell you just what it was that annoyed her. And then at the end, she'd say, poof on them. And I was like, whoa. I thought that was cute. And then the other thing, when she mentioned she was going for her mammogram every year, I always thought that was awfully cute. That was definite Adrianism, but she was smart. She was very smart. She just had these few little things that we all loved about her. Anyway, we'll all miss her. It was a terrible shock, and I was hoping she'd have another 10 years, so she doesn't, and thank you.
Hello, I'm Nancy Hardiman. I'm Adrienne's neighbor and the president of the HOA board. And I'm on the board because of Adrienne. She encouraged me to run because she really felt the board needed more integrity and ethics like she possessed. And she was always welcome to speak at our meetings because whatever she said contributed to the betterment of the board and whatever project we were working on. And we all listened to Adrienne. If when it came to contracts and budgets and all that, they were involved. We could count on the fact that Adrienne had been up late, poring over the documents, getting every word, making copious notes, writing on her tablet, and she printed, which I'm told is a sign of intelligence, and instead of cursive like I would do. And so we would always count on her, particularly on the legal issues, accounting issues, and by golly, she'd be right. She would find some little something and she would be right. So I always think of her integrity, her ethical attitude about everything. And if she felt you were telling a lie or you didn't know what you were talking about, you were going to hear from Adrienne. And she was tenacious in that, and that was a benefit to our board. We will miss her terribly in that regard. The second thing I think about Adrienne is her style. She always looked beautiful coming out whenever since we lived across the street from each other, we'd share rides, and she'd come walking out after a bout with something, whether it was after she had her pacemaker put in or her new monitor or whatever, but she would come walking out. I think, well, you look so beautiful today. I just don't understand how you could do it all the time and have the energy and all, and the smile on her face and her jewelry and her hair was perfect and all, and just set a good standard for the rest of us. I made the joke that you could tell how many of the white hairs are here today. We're on the board. So it obviously was something that created a little distress in our lives, but she always brought that smile. And the last thing, along with the style that she had, was when she was redoing her house and her bathroom, as was mentioned. And oh my heavens, what a chore that was, because she was meticulous in her choices. And she'd run to a store and pick out the light fixture, and then she'd get a mirror, and then she'd get the vanity, and then bring it home, and then come over and look at it, and then nope, she'd get it. I just went, is this the right color? Is this the, and then back she'd go again. No, it wasn't. She'd go back, she'd change out the light fixture, she'd get a new mirror, she'd, whatever, but she was never satisfied really until the very end. And she did create a beautiful bathroom that I'm sorry that she can't enjoy. But I just bought her door from her. She had a front door. She wanted to get out of that garage. And then she had another lot of debris in the garage that she wanted to have moved away because the old ice, I guess the snow blower that her dad had put in there for 20 years, and it was time for it to be gone. It just cluttering up her garage. And so she was looking to get rid of a lot of that kind of thing. And her next project was to paint the living room. She wanted to get rid of the gold. She was tired of that now and wanted to be more modern with gray or something. And I knew that that would be a next huge project, but we'd all welcome her stories about which color she finally selected and all that would go. But the fact that we live close together and with being on the board together, we had a lot of conversations when we were sitting at her table going over numbers and figures and contracts and all. It was always great to just giggle and laugh and just have the best time in the world because she had a great laugh, very hearty, and you just had to laugh with her. So we will miss that laugh, we'll miss her intellect, and most of all, we'll miss her friendship.
What a dash, full of stories and moments, and she sounds like a really good friend to have, a really good person to have around you. And so we're going to hold that with us as we begin the process of saying goodbye to Adrienne's physical presence here. It's hard, like we said. It is impossible, in fact, to say goodbye and to be present in this moment, and yet we do it for her. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Adonai Natan Adonai Lakra Ki Shem Adonai Mevorah Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Yatzar Atzem B'Tshuvo Ve'Hamit Etchem B'Adin Ben Atah B'Tofechem Chayei Olam Baruch Atah Adonai Dayan HaEmet Atah Gibor Le'Olam Adonai Rav Lehoshia Mechal Tel Chaim B'Chesed Nefayei Hakol B'Rachamim Rabim Somech Noflim B'Rofeh Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emurato Lishenei Afar Yichamel Haba Al Giburo Tumido Melach Melech Meimit Umechayei Umatzmiach Yeshua Baruch Atah Adonai Notea B'Tocheinu Chayei Olam Dayan ha'emet, shofet tzedek ve'emet, Baruch Dayan ha'emet, ki kol mishpatav tzedek ve'emet, nefesh kol chai biyadecha, tzedek mal'a yamincha, biyadecha, rachem al pleitat son yadecha, v'tomar l'malach, teref yadecha, gadol ha'etza ve'rav ha'aliyah, asher einacha pekuchot, Al kol derachei b'nei Adam, latet la'ish ki drachav, v'chifri me'al alav, lahagid ki yashar Adonai, suri v'lo avla tabo. Adonai natan, Adonai lakach, Yishem Adonai mevorach, ve'hu rachem yechaper avon, ve'lo yashlit, ve'hir ba lahashiv apo, ve'lo ya'ir kol chamato. So we have an opportunity now that I want to take just a moment to tell you about. In the Jewish tradition, at this moment, we take a very brief pause on our service. And that is because we help to fill a grave with earth, which, if this is your first Jewish funeral, might seem a little hard to imagine. And in fact, it is. It's a really hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to listen to and to participate in. And yet, it is one of the greatest gifts that we can give to someone that we love, because we know that they can't say thank you. And so we are doing it for them out of the goodness of our own hearts. And from what I have learned about Adrienne today, I imagine it is something that she would have most certainly done for any of us. And so we each get an opportunity. First, I'm going to invite the family members that she has here, and then anyone else who wants to participate, to just put a little bit of the earth back into her grave. And you're Cody, right? Yeah. So I want to just tell you one thing about this cool tradition that we have. I imagine, Cody, that you have been tucked in most nights before you go to sleep. Yeah. Somebody make sure that you're super cozy and warm, and that you have water, and I don't know, do you sleep with stuffed animals? I have a 6-year-old, he does, right? So you're cozy, you have all the things that you need and want to sleep super, super tight. That's what we do. This is a place where Adrienne is going to rest, and we make sure that she is cozy and tucked in, and that she has everything that she needs. And it's actually really important to us that we don't just watch it happen, that we do it ourselves. That's what it means to take care of someone we love. And so we participate in this tradition. You are not obligated. You do not have to if you do not want to. Anybody that does want to, you are welcome. We're going to take a moment while we do that of just sort of quiet. I'm going to invite up first Adrienne's family to participate. You are welcome to use the shovel. We don't have very much earth, so we have to make sure that there's plenty. Or you can just use your hand and sprinkle a little bit into the grave. Anybody else who wants to participate is welcome to come forward and make a line. You can go on either side. If you're going to use your hands, feel free to just go right up. We rise for our memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Pamromim Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina Im Kadoshim Utehorim Kazohar Harakia Mazkirim Et Nishmat Adrienne Bat Yisachar Zelig Shahalacha Leolama Bala Rachamim Yasireha V'seter knafav leolamim B'tzror Chaim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachalata V'tanuach B'shalom Al Mishkava V'nomar Amen. God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved one who has gone into eternity find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold her close to you forever so that her soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May she find a home with you, and may she rest in peace. And together we say, Amen.
Amen.
And the last obligation that we have before we leave is to say the words of the Mourners Pradesh. It is our traditional prayer of memory in the Jewish community. And the words are hard, they're Aramaic. And the prayer actually doesn't say anything about death itself. It only talks about what beauty we have in the world. And so I invite you to think as we say these words about the beauty of Adrienne and what she brought to your lives, even as we miss her. Yitkadal, Yitkarash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma, Dibra, Birute, Be'amlich, Malchute, B'chayechan, U'b'yamechan, U'chaye, Techolvei Yisrael, Ba'agala, U'bizman, Kariv, Bimru, Amen. Yehe Shmei Rabbah, Mevorach, Le'olam, U'le'amei Amaya. Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitramam, V'yitnaseh, V'yithadar, V'yit'aleh, V'yithalal, Shemei Kudisha, Brithu, La'ela, Min Kol, Birchata, V'shirata, Tushbachata, V'nechemata, Da'amiran, Be'alma, V'imru, Amen. Yehe Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mamav, Huya Aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. May the one who makes peace on high make peace for us, for all of Israel, and together we say, Amen. Lech Kishalachcha Adonai. Go your way, for God has called you. Lech Adonai Ima. Go your way, and may God be with you. V'halach lefanecha tzidkecha kivod Adonai yasecha. May your righteousness go before you, and the glory of God receive you. And we conclude with these words that we say at the end of every Jewish funeral. Hamakom yinachem etchem b'tov sha'ar avlei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. It means may God comfort you amongst all of the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. And what I think that really means is that you are not the first to mourn, and you will not be the last. And we know that what makes this beautiful is having loved and having had people in our lives that are worth mourning for. And so I wish each of you much comfort in these days. I know that it's hard to imagine that someone who was here is no longer, and yet we take with us the memory of a person who really had, I think, a lot of love to give, and it's still here. That concludes our service. Thank you so much.